What's good, gente? Thank you for tuning in like always. As you guys can see on the thumbnail and on the title, right? Why do others join the Riders? And I should have said the Norteño Riders because that's what it actually was called at the beginning. But there was a couple of changes, and one of the reasons why it was because there was a lot of other groups that were joining that technically weren't ex-Norteños or sympathizers of the North, right? Like that they happen to be from the northern areas. And that was one of the main reasons why they ended up changing it, because they had a lot of Sureños and a lot of these other groups that decided to join. So I'm going to be explaining a little bit about that on this video. So before we get started, man, let's make sure to hit a like, make sure to subscribe, hit that follow, hit that notification bell, just in case we go live. You guys ain't going to want to miss out, man. It gets raw on the thing. So with all that being said, gente, thank you guys for your support, and let's get started, right? So in the mid-2000s, it became a thing for the Norteño Riders, right, to open the books. And what I mean books, man, I mean allowing other members, other groups to join the Norteño Riders, right? And even though it was called Norteño Riders, and you would have thought not too many Sureños would have joined, because there was a lot of whites, a few brothers, you know, some Asians. There was a lot of Sureños that happened to join this movement. And it got to a point, man, that they even started wanting to call themselves Sureño Riders. And of course, man, that got shut down. There were still too many members that actually still had that norte in them. And what I mean by that, right, that they still had the same beliefs, and they would honestly be set tripping on some of the compas that happen to be from down south. And I'll get into that on another video of how grimy it can get, right? So stay tuned. But a lot of Sureños did join, and when they started that little Sureño thing, man, there was conflict in between the group, that it got to the point that there had to be some changes. And there's multiple stories. Some people say that oh boy ended up changing the whole rider thing, the Norteño rider thing, into just riders because of a certain dude named Panda. I can't really stamp that, to be quite real, that was the main reason why. Because there was a lot of compas, man, that ended up deciding on this thing, right? Especially because there was a lot of Sureños. And of course, man, some didn't like the fact that they had to say Norteño Riders. And it wasn't really the upstaters, to be quite real, man. The upstaters they were feeling it, homie. And they were just kind of taking it like, well, we're technically from the north, you know. And they had Norteño Rider blasted on them. There was actually a few that some from my town, homie. Shout out to the homie, man. I'm not even going to put his placazo out there, but there's a homie out here, man, that happened to be from Portside. And he does have a 1418 on him. He has Norteño Rider. And there's actually a few others that didn't care, just like him. But there was a few that were from down south, man, that they were solid, homie. They were solid homies, and they did feel some type of way. And it was told to them that they were just allowed to say Riders, and they didn't technically have to say the North. But the North did get taken down, I want to say, like around 2012. But that shit didn't really kick in. Like, not too many riders were actually like, they were ignoring it. You know, there were still a lot of them pushing the whole Norteño Riders. And there were the Sureños that were pulling up, and that they knew these changes. Well, they would just have to deal with it, you know. They were just riders. They were still compas. They were still looked at the same. But like I said, man, a lot of the riders at that time, they still had that, like, Norte believe, homie. And they actually still had some type of hate when it came to the homies from the down south. Let's just keep it real. But it did get to the point where everybody was just technically a rider, you know, and you didn't have to acknowledge the northern part no more. And a lot of Sureños, man, they were feeling it. It even got to a point, I want to say, that the number were even. There was, like, you would roll up to a yard, and more than likely, it would probably be, like, let's say the numbers were low on a compa, for example, right? Let's just say that there was 15 compas. I don't want to put too many compas on a yard, right? Let's say there was, like, 15. I guarantee you, out of them 15, at least 6 were going to be Sureños. And the rest were going to either be northerners and a little bit of a mixture. A few whites, you know. Most of the yards only had about like 1 or 2 white boys that were part of the riders, right? But that's because they do have other groups that are technically for the white boys, you know, for the woods that do defect and stuff like that. But when it came to the riders, man, it was technically mostly Sureños and Norteños. And even though people may trip out, like, man, why would they want to join, that certain group? It's because of the mentality, homie, that the riders have, homie. They technically are against the grain. And even though things have been changed, because you already be knowing that old boy did say that renegades and pretty much someone against the grain, it's not technically part of the movement no more, right? He went. It's on certain videos on a certain channel, man. So if you guys want to see those, you gotta tune in and look for it. I'm not gonna clip it or none of that. I'm not gonna look for it myself. But you may ask yourself, why were those doors open, for those groups? It was pretty much looked as a strategy, bro. Let's be real. People do see an enemy of an enemy equals a friend, right? So now that the certain group that was defected, of course, man, the riders didn't start off on an SNY yard, but it did get transferred that way by certain decisions of Snoop. They did go that route, but they weren't considered to be a dropout group. They weren't no pesetones, how people like to assume, right? So a lot of the Sureños, man, that were falling out of favor, because like I said, man, to be part of the riders, or at least at that time, you had to go through a process, man. You had to get checked through, make sure you weren't a rat and stuff like that. So a lot of the Sureños that were defecting, man, they were kind of seeing it like, man, these dudes are against the North, especially when it came to the upstaters. So they were like, fuck it, let's do it. And I know that there was something like, in my town at least, there's a lot of ex-Southerners that became part of the rider movement, And one of the main reasons is because they tend to have the same enemies, even though a Sureño, or I should have just said an upstater, right, happens to defect, homie. Any Northerner out there that's still functioning or whatever, he's still gonna see him as an enemy. He's still gonna get jammed up. It doesn't matter if he's just doing his family thing. So more than likely, man, that's one of the main reasons why a lot of Sureños are like, man, let's join that push, homie. Especially because they do see a lot of people like in the county, and more than likely they're gonna run into a certain homie that's already functioning, and they happen to know, So it did become popular for like the Sureños. I actually believe that there's probably more ex-Sureños than Northerners nowadays. I could be wrong, right? I could be wrong, or the numbers could still be even. But at least when it comes to like my town, shit, we're even. I was gonna say we're even, homie. That's for sure. But it could be different in other towns. I understand some towns don't have too many Southerners, but things have changed, And I know in prison, I'm probably gonna have some people in the comments like, bro, there ain't that many no more. In prison, things have changed, especially with this whole certified change push. It's got a little bit more political, right? So a lot of them are not feeling that no more. So, but out here in the calles, I mean, it's still the same thing. And if you go to your county or you happen to get locked up, I guarantee you're going to see a handful of them. You're going to see a lot of riders, right? And a lot of these other groups. Now, when it comes to the white boys, right? One of the main reasons why they do become riders is because most of them, bro, they're not racist, carnal. It's just when they hit the prison system, they have to abide by certain things. And most of them have homeboy friends, homie friends. And what I mean by homeboys, of course, the Norteños. They have Sureño friends. They have black friends, homie. So when they hit the system, they have to go a different route. So now with these new yards and all that, they get to choose, homie. And they happen to like the get down, homie, and they feel like they're just in their neighborhoods, especially when it comes to the ones from up north. I haven't really seen too many white boys from down south join the riders, maybe one or two, but I haven't really seen too many. But when it comes to white boys from the north, oh, I've seen hell of them, right? Shout outs to Puck. I mean, there's all kinds of homeboys that I could be giving shout outs to, right? So a lot of white boys that do join the rider movement. And it's because, like I said, man, it brings them back to like their areas, where they are chopping it up with anyone that they want to. They're not technically racist, homie. Prison makes them that way. So that's one of the main reasons why I think they join, right? They just feel like they're at home. When it comes to the brothers, homie, like I said, there's only been a few some solid ass ones, right? But it's only been a few because I always have put this out there, and even though people don't like to believe it, Crip Mac is actually an example, right? When it comes to the brothers, them being on SNY, 50/50s, whatever you want to call them, right? They're still considered to be active, homie. The brothers don't politic like that. So they're always considered to be good in their hood. So that's one of the main reasons why there's not too many of them. But I hope I was able to answer most of your guys' comments or questions when it came to this subject, right? If I didn't, make sure to tune into the lives, bro. You know, tune into the live, drop your questions, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my abilities, right? You guys already been knowing your boy Conejo's not going to pick up a dictionary just to give you hard words or have you looking up things, you know? I'm not like that, carnal. I'm going to keep it raw and real, and that's just the way we are, homie. So if you guys happen to enjoy the video, man, make sure to hit a like for your boy. Make sure to subscribe, hit that follow, hit that notification bell, just in case we go live, man. You guys ain't gonna want to miss out. Guarantee you that. So with all that being said, gente, thank you guys once again for your support, and I'll see you guys on the next one or on the live. This is your boy Conejo, and we out.